So remember back on April 5th we told you that jnmartin's full release of WipEout for the SEGA Dreamcast was the best version ever? Well, we lied. I mean, we didn't mean to lie, because on April 17th, jnmartin released version 2.1, packed full of enhancements and refinements aimed at bringing the experience as close to the PlayStation original as possible, albeit running at 640 by 480 at 60 frames per second. You see, version 2.1 feels like WipEout. I mean, that's not to say the previous versions didn't, but the refinements here make this feel the way WipEout was meant to play. The controls feel tighter in a good way, they're more responsive, and the air brakes have a louder, much more satisfying whoosh sound effect when activated. That may not sound like a big deal, but it's a clever and effective use of audio feedback in the controls. It was in the previous build, but it wasn't quite as audible. When you're struck by an enemy's weapon, the screen now shakes with the impact, and the walls of each track are no longer as unforgiving. In the comments on our last video, someone mentioned that the ships didn't flip when hitting the walls at speed like they did in the PS1 version. Well, now they do. In terms of rival ship AI, they're now more akin to their PS1 counterparts and don't cut you up like prime Michael Schumacher. Ship-to-ship collisions have also received bug fixes, and while they'll still try to block your racing line, they're not as infuriating to race against as they were in the previous version. Wait, do you get racing lines in anti-gravity races? You know what I mean. Presentation is also a big part of this version, with the in-game music changing to a new random track when moving between the title screen, the menus and the game, and vice versa. The attract mode now initiates after 30 seconds, just like on the PlayStation version, with the on-screen text scroller condensed to match the font size on PS1. And the PS1 controller on the options screen has been replaced with a render of the Dreamcast controller.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Now, so far, if you've been paying attention, you'll have noticed that this version is running in widescreen, and yes, anamorphic 16:9 widescreen can be enabled from the menu. You can also toggle the size of the on-screen HUD as before, as well as enable or disable texture filtering. The option to choose which shader version is used is no longer available, and the render distance and distance fade options are also removed. This version feels more like a fully optimised out-the-box experience, aimed at letting players boot up the game and play it at an optimal setting from the moment they press start. The texture filter option does remain though, and when speaking to jnmartin on the Simulant Discord, he told me that turning texture filtering off is kind of like a PS1 aesthetic. So, for the full PS1 style experience, keep the aspect ratio on 4:3, turn texture filtering off, and keep the HUD on the default size by keeping the VI scale set to high. Simply put, this version aims to restore the behaviours and gameplay from the PlayStation original, which has been jnmartin's goal from the very start. He wants to present WipEout as intended, while utilising the resolution and the power of the Dreamcast hardware. I played through and won a Venom Championship, and the difference between this version and version 1.0 is night and day. It's now a far more enjoyable experience to play through without the over-the-top rival AI, and the tighter controls and audio feedback via the air brakes makes the connection between the controller and the track feel closer than ever. And you have to commend jnmartin for caring enough and taking the time to implement all these changes. When you check the issues tab on his GitHub page, you can see the issues that people have raised, and they're now all closed. Well, bar one which mentions incompatibility with the Retro Fighters D6 and the Striker DC third-party controllers. But let's be honest, they're both garbage. Stick to the stock Dreamcast controller. It would have been all too easy to put out version 1.0 and say enjoy, but as we've seen with Doom 64, jnmartin doesn't stop until he's happy with the experience and the performance. So there we have it, the Dreamcast version of WipEout just got even better, even more playable and even more enjoyable. The link to jnmartin's GitHub is in the description, and as always, thank you so much for watching. This is James the Segaholic of the Sega Guys, and until next time, we'll see you on the Sega side.